Hey guys, it's Dave Trout here for Dave Trout Fitness. So today I want to go over hamstrings and hamstring flexibility and different ways we can approach mobilizing and stretching the hamstrings for optimal results. So you'll find that if you have poor hinging mechanics, lower back pain, poor posture even, hamstrings can be a contributing factor. And we want to make sure that we're stretching the hamstrings correctly, and we can deal with it in many different ways. The first way I like to deal with my hamstrings is just myofascial release or self-myofascial release. And we do that easily with a foam roller. So the way we can do this is just kind of place it under our hip. So basically to the bottom of my glute. And I'm gonna roll the entire length of my hamstrings. And what that means is I'm gonna go from my hip to my knee. And when you think about how the hamstring is comprised, there's 3 different muscles that actually make up the hamstring. And you wanna change your angle when you're doing this to make sure we're kind of hitting all those different muscle bellies. And you might feel some adhesions, which is normal. Try to spend a little bit more time on the more tight areas or the more uncomfortable areas, because that's the area that needs a little bit more work. Foam rolling is one really easy way to deal with that. And when it comes down to it, you want to roll as much as that muscle needs. If you notice one area is much tighter than the other in your hamstring, focus on the area that seems like it needs more attention, because it does. When we think of, okay, why do I get tight hamstrings? It's multifactorial, but when we think about a couple of main reasons for it, people suffer from what we call lower cross syndrome. So that's this anterior pelvic tilt that we develop from having tight hip flexors and tight hamstrings and an under-facilitated glute muscle. So when our glutes get weak and spending a lot of time in seated positions, these other muscles will get too tight and some will become underactive. And that will create that dysfunction known as lower cross syndrome. That being said, the body's gonna have to compensate for those. So we can avoid that just by mobilizing properly and learning how to stretch your hamstrings properly. After myofascial release, another thing you can do to mobilize the hamstring is just simple stretching. There's many different ways to stretch your hamstrings, but many people do it incorrectly. So I'm going to show you a really easy way to take care of it yourself. And it might be just a little tweak from something you're doing now that might actually get you a lot better results down the road. So when we first think about how to stretch my hamstrings, easiest way is just from a seated position, because you can do it anywhere. So what we want to make sure is we're not doing any of these common mistakes that we see in the hamstring stretch. A lot of people, what they do is they just kind of fall forward. And you're going to feel a hamstring stretch from that, but it's not necessarily optimal if we're just kind of folding and rounding our lower back to get a stretch. Because some of the benefit you're going to get from the hamstring stretching is going to be negated by the rounding of the lower back. A better way to stretch your hamstrings would be to get nice and tall, so you're getting your chest up, and then you're going to lean forward. And once you've got as far as you can, you're gonna feel a huge stretch in your hamstring. But now you can fold, and you'll kind of take that lower back out of the equation. And you'll find as you're going, you'll be able to go further and further in the stretch. So after I hold it for a few seconds, I'll be able to go a little bit further and further and further each time. You wanna make sure that you're not overstretching the muscle. So in terms of discomfort, it shouldn't be any more than like a 6 on 10. That being said, if I'm doing the stretch and I start to feel it becoming a little easier, well then I can deepen the stretch as that muscle relaxes. So if you're gonna do that, you're gonna breathe out and go further. Breathe out and go further. And that will allow the muscle to relax a little bit so that you can get into a deeper stretch. From a seated position, I can do both legs at once. I can tuck one leg in, one leg at a time. Either way, I still want to make sure that I'm really thinking about that tall position, that nice neutral spine, that lean, and that fold. It will just be a lot more effective in the long run. Another really great way to stretch your hamstrings, one that I like, is using either a towel or a band. I would recommend doing this more on a regular basis. I wouldn't do this necessarily before I work out or before like a hinging session or deadlift session or anything like that. As for normal hamstring maintenance and just tight hamstrings, this is a fantastic way to deal with it. So how we do this one, you can grab a band, you can grab a towel, anything that will work. So we're gonna lay on the back. We're gonna wrap the band around the toes, And when you're stretching, you don't want to be tense. You want to be relaxed. The only thing that you should feel any tension in is this hamstring. So what I do is I'm going to relax my back. I'm not going to keep my arm bent and to keep tension in my arm. I'm going to let it go nice and straight and just relax back. I'm going to breathe out to pull the stretch back. Once again, maintaining that about 6 on 10 in terms of discomfort. If I want to go deeper into the stretch, I'm going to breathe out and pull back a little more. And you can hit different angles. Go to the inside, which will be much more painful or discomforting, or you go the outside. Concept, once again, is you want to hit all those 3 muscle bellies, so hitting different angles is going to be very beneficial to do that. Another way I really like to stretch my hamstrings is just on a ledge. So find something that's an appropriate height for you. Basically, you just put your leg up, and then we follow the same concepts we did in the other stretch. So we want to think nice, big, tall chest, and then we're going to lean forward until we find the appropriate stretch. Once again, about 6 on 10. And we can move around a little bit. Just the movement can kind of loosen up different areas that might be a little tighter than others. And every once in a while, when you feel like you've kind of adapted to this stretch, you can just, once again, breathe out and go a little deeper until eventually you can get pretty deep in the stretch. And from here, I can change the angles, working more towards the adductors or wherever you feel tension, but just making sure you're progressing the stretch as you need. So lastly, I want to show you a really good hamstring mobilization drill. So I talk differently about mobilizing and stretching for the fact that stretching is just lengthening the muscle. Once again, I don't want to necessarily do that before movement because it's just going to loosen the muscle and then potentially loosen the joint, which could make me more susceptible to injury. Instead, what I want to do is I want to mobilize the hamstring. And what that does, it gets the hamstring ready for movement. So to do that, all you need is a band and an anchor point. So for us, just using this nice banister here just to kind of get that anchor point. I'm going to grab the band. I'm going to step through it. So I'm going to step through until I feel some tension in the band pulling my leg backwards. This is adding an element of distraction, which is actually going to allow me to get a deeper stretch, but it's also going to be very good to get my hip capsule working a little bit better, which will actually improve my movement. So this leg is my leg I'm stretching. I'm going to step the other one forward. I'm going to hinge, so I'm pushing my hips back, and then I'm going to fold until I feel a nice stretch in the hamstring. Once again, you can move around. Still looking for about a 6 on 10 in terms of discomfort, nothing more. And then just trying to find all the angles at which that hamstring is tight. And you can do this for anywhere from 1 to 2 minutes. You can do it more if you feel good. Obviously, you don't want to overstretch, so you need to be careful. All right, guys, that's it for the hamstring sequence for today. We got a couple really good stretches in. We got a really good hamstring mobilization that actually gets you ready for movement. If you really like the video, please give it a thumbs up and a share and subscribe for more content. But if there's anything else you guys want to see, any particular areas you want to work on, or any exercises you have questions with, please comment below and I'm going to get to those as best I can. All right, guys, stay fit and take care.